Go ahead with your question or comment, please.
Hello,
Go ahead.
good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Good morning. I must say that I'm a Trinbagonian of mixed descent. And my question to you is, what is the basis for classifying us as Trinbagonians into different ethnic groups? From my understanding of what an ethnic group is a grouping of persons who we eat the same food, we educate, we have the same education, we go to the same festivals. We are essentially Trinbagonians as a people living in a country, in this island. We constitute an ethnic group. And as far as I am concerned, you are trying to institutionalize a difference for ultimate political advantage. Because someone like myself, I embrace both my Afro and my Indo heritage. I am all Indian and I am all African. What is your basis for classifying us as Indo or African?
Let me respond to that question, because again it goes back with all due respect. The word ethnic comes from the Greek word called ethnos. And ethnos is a self-awareness of difference. It has nothing to do with color. I just talked about the Rwandans. We had two different groups who were both black and each killing one another. Because what an ethnic group is a self-conscious awareness of difference because of all kinds of reasons, how you cook your food and so on. We don't impose it. I didn't come and impose that. That is something that's grown out of from very small societies. First of all, you had clans, ethnicities, nationalities, nations. These are levels of social development and complexity. I don't impose nothing. What we're trying to explain that. So you are now Indian and African and you don't know about ethnicity, so therefore it shouldn't exist. And I don't know if that logic follows. Now I think you're quite right to embrace all of your past and all of your variability. I think that's wonderful. But you can't come and say somehow we're imposing something that doesn't exist. It is not true.
Worse than that, the lady seemed totally ignorant that the government of Trinidad and Tobago every 10 years conducts a census, that break the people down into races and religions.
Seven categories
just completed.
And it's done all over
Why they're saying that I am imposing race and he is imposing race when she answered the question to the census takers?
And just in America, they introduced a new category called mixed race. And also, there's also this emotion that goes along with any discussion on ethnicity and race, trying to move a discussion forward. We have a final call.
Arima on the line, yes. Good morning to you, Arima.
Good morning.
Thank you for holding.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. A very good morning to the learned gentleman. A very good program. A voice for the indigenous peoples. I feel...
That's Ricardo?
Yes.
Yeah, well, Satmaraj raised up. That my friend didn't raise that. He said you didn't exist.
When I have to sing my national anthem, and I reach to the point where here every creed and race find an equal place, I don't sing it. Because I don't feel that the indigenous people have an equal place.
Okay.
All governments, since we started to interact with governments from the 1970s, have given token recognition to the indigenous people, a little funding to do this, a little funding to do that. But our major cry to give us land in lieu of what we lost under the Treaty of Spain to the British in Arima, where the indigenous peoples owned 1,300 acres of land, and it was taken away from them illegally. We are just asking for a space, because just as the Africans and the East Indians feel passionate about their culture, so we feel, but we are not at a level where they are. And we feel that the governments don't take us on because of our numbers. It is not significant to put them in power. But the United Nations, recognizing the plight of indigenous peoples throughout the world, has adopted a declaration on the rights of the indigenous peoples that speak to all these issues. Trinidad and Tobago is a signatory to that declaration. Although it is not binding on the state, we are pleading with them, give us a space where we can continue to preserve what we have, to build what we have lost, by integration with the other indigenous people of the Caribbean, so that we too can feel proud at having our equal place in this land that first belonged to the indigenous peoples. So I thank you very much.
We're going to ask you to hold the line, please. Our producers would like to get a contact number from you.
Yes.
So please hold the line.
Yes, that's Ricardo Barra-Fernandez.
First of all, if what Mr. Kojo says about my politics, that I am in charge, I would have given back the people their land. But my friend didn't even recognize their existence in this last interview here. He didn't recognize their existence. He recognized the existence of indigenous people in Canada and in Australia, but not in Trinidad, not in Arima, boy, where you delivered the speech last night. Why don't you recognize our friends?
But I don't know what you're...
Why didn't Manning give them back their land?
You'll have to speak to Mr. Manning about that. Ricardo was a PNM councillor, so you have to ask him whether, of course, he talked to Manning about that. But I, like you, agree that they should be given all of their rights. It's due to them as First Peoples, and I support entirely what Ricardo has said, and I think we have to do more work to recognize what they have done.
Going back to that question, that comment from the caller about, for our closing comments, about the fact that there's a disconnect between people's understanding of either ethnic group sometimes, and that furtherance of that understanding will do more for our discussions in the future. Do you all, both you gentlemen, believe that people understand this is a process? It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something we can predict going to happen in 5 years or 10 years. It's not something that can happen with 5 or 10 studies. It's a process.
Yeah, well, we are evolving as a society all across the world. No society has reached their full development. We are still evolving. Even the massive, mighty America is still evolving.
It's declining.
Huh?
It's declining. Go ahead.
Well, evolving downwards, but it's evolving. And like everywhere else, Trinidad and Tobago, we are also evolving. And maybe the change of government and the constant attacks that they are getting from the non-believers,
the
wrong, that might be good for the country.
But I also think that, I think it also brings up the point of education. I don't think we're properly educated in our schools. For example, I think a place like UTT, you should not come out with a degree from UTT without knowing there should be a course on Trinidad and Tobago history and culture. The same thing is true at our different high schools. I think, and of course, I would agree, I don't think we're doing enough of these public programs in terms of education. The boy want to go online. And it just seems to me that part of the failure, and in support of Ricardo and the work that we do, we need to have many more. And I want to just simply thank you for having us, because I think it really advanced the discourse. I think it demonstrates two things. I could disagree vehemently with your idea, but I don't disagree. I could still love you as a person. It happens in families, and I think this represents such a sophisticated level of our society. But we got to do more education, both private and public and academic and so on.
The question that I want to ask is that are you officially going to pass on the baton to my generation to take up the mantle, to take up the struggle, to make a better Trinidad and Tobago?
There is nothing like an official handing over. Mm-hmm. It's evolution. The word is evolution, evolve. Leadership, new leadership would evolve. Eric Williams never put his hand on Chambers' head and say, you will take over the baton. That's the last person Eric Williams would have passed the baton to. So it's not a question of passing the baton. It's that you lay your claim. That is the next generation. Somebody has to stand out and start to lay their claim for leadership of the PNM, because this present leadership will collapse.
My gosh.
Given the discourse on the deficiencies the overriding system faces with whichever government comes into power, do you think we need constitutional reform can be used as a tool to alleviate some of those issues?
In what area?
In the areas of trying to alleviate the subjective distribution of resources.
It's always a subject. I mean, any government has to have its priorities, have to determine what it wants, and has to be always aware. Now, I think one of the problems that we never worked out under the PNM government, and I think Severin Ryan was always very big on that, what do we do with minorities or the minorities? In other words, our system of winner-take-all has not been the most conducive thing. I don't know how quite we work it out. Because once you lose in Trinidad and Tobago, you need a house. The resources to finance the constituents. Now, these are the kinds of questions I think we need to try to work through. And I wrote about before the PNM came up our way, and you quote me on that too. I wrote it before PNM lost. And those are some of the concerns we at least to begin to discuss in terms of how we move forward. I think it's more question discussion and how we put that in place.
Gentlemen, if there is one thing that people really are faulting us for this morning, is that we didn't have a discussion that brought in the mixed races in our society and some of the other ethnic groups. Perhaps we can save that for another day, because the mixed races, that grouping is growing in numbers every day as we meet and love each other and produce offspring. Yeah?
And that too might transform the nature as that group grows, the nature of social relations. That's why I think we start with Kerwin says, history is a process, not stasis. We go from one stage to another. And what we're doing here really, in our own blindness, we're just struggling to try to see the way we could do. We may make mistakes, we may go forward. But the thing is to keep the discussion, the discourse going, so we begin to understand each other and give both First Peoples, mixed peoples, everybody their space in the society.
We've been talking to Satnarayan Maharaj, General Secretary of the Sanatana Dharma Mahasabha, and also Professor Selwyn Kojo of the National Association for the Empowerment of African People. Gentlemen, we thank you so much for being here this morning. We hope this is the first of a series of discussions that we can have lucidly and calmly as we evolve as a society.
There will always be emotion when Kojo and I bounce up.
And we thank you for that. That's so true.
That's it for today, folks, and thanks to everyone who participated in the show. Look out for the question of the day. Look out for the question of the day on our Facebook pages in just a bit, and get ready to vote as well. Bye, everybody. Bye.